series of stoves. This section here, we have the canister stoves.
And over here we have liquid gas stoves, an alcohol stove and two that run on white gas.
And this is a section all to itself, the Twig stove, which has natural fuel.
We're going to take a look at all these different stoves and look at some of their benefits and some of their drawbacks.
All right, Scott, let's get started. This is our collection of the canister stoves. This first one I'll show you is a full propane canister in which you can find this stove and this canister many places. This top section of the stove is pretty heavy, so it's not my favorite for backpacking, and yet it's easy to find the fuel for this stove. The second stove I'll show you is very similar to the first stove, and yet it's much more compact and lightweight. It also is made with propane in the canister, but it's a propane isobutane mix. It means it's going to burn a lot warmer, and you can cook food at lower temperatures. I really like this stove because it's so compact. It folds up easily and it has a case in order to store it into your backpack to carry it as a lightweight stove. This third one I also like a lot. It's the Jetboil, very popular stove. Has the propane isobutane mix fuel, so it's great at colder temperatures and it burns really warm, but it also has a section right here that captures the heat into this special pot that's also insulated so that while I cook my food, I can detach it when I'm finished cooking, take it in my hands and eat directly out of it or drink out of it. It depends what I'm cooking. Let's try a couple of these stoves out. Let's begin with the pocket rocket. As I take the stove section and I attach it onto the canister, I simply screw it on until it's just snug, and then I go finger tight just a little bit, not too tight. I fold these down and then I begin by turning the fuel on just slightly until I hear that sound, and I put my lighter to it or my match to it, and then I can turn it up or down. Depends what I'm cooking and how fast I want to cook it. These isobutane propane canisters are so convenient to use on all sorts of stoves. Here's just another one that we can show you, a stove that I do like. Let's check out the Jetboil. I like this little stove. I screw the canister on, similar to the pocket rocket, and I have a control device to allow the fuel in and out. I now hear it, and now I can push this electric push button that sparks and lights the fuel on fire. I can hear it on, and from here I can turn it up. One of the advantages of these canister stoves is simply how easy they are to use. Put the canister on and light them. A disadvantage of these stoves is that these canisters aren't refillable. That means they end up on our landfills. Scott's going to show us a couple other stoves and show us their advantages and disadvantages as well.
And here we have our liquid fuel section of stoves. We'll start with the alcohol stove right here. So this is one of the simplest stoves you'll find. You simply take off the lid, pour alcohol in there, and light it with a match or a lighter. And you'll get little flames all around the rim here. You need a pot support to put above it, but with no moving parts and a fuel that you can find all over the world, this one's a traveler's choice. And over here we have the two white gas stoves. Both of these stoves will need heat and pressure in order to vaporize the fuel, but they get it in different ways. We'll start with this one here. Now, it's not very common. You won't see many of these around, but it's pretty neat in its design. The fuel tank is here that you fill with white gas, and then it's made out of copper, and it uses the conductivity of copper to heat the tank just enough to have the heat and pressure it needs to vaporize the fuel up here. You can control the heat there. That's a collector's item. And we'll move over here to the key stove from backpackers all over the world. And this one happens to be the MSR Dragonfly. This is just a heat shield to make it more efficient. It keeps all the heat in from the burner, and since the fuel tank isn't in here with the burner, it's safe to do that. And this one gets its heat and pressure from the pump here and doing a little process called priming. And we'll show you that in just a moment. Since we've seen a little bit about them, let's try and fire this up. So these ones you have to pressurize by pumping, and then you need some heat to vaporize the fuel, and you do that by a process called priming. And so after it's pressurized, you open the valve and fill the cup with some liquid fuel. We light that, and it burns with a pretty wild looking yellow flame. And what it's doing is it's heating up the fuel in an internal tube there till it's hot enough that it's vaporized. And once it's heated that up, it'll turn into a crisp blue flame. It'll just take a moment. All right, we add our pot and our heat shield, and we'll be boiling in no time. So the main advantages of our Backpacker's gas stove is that it burns at sub-zero temperatures, and also you can refill the fuel canister. That makes it more environmentally friendly and also cheaper to burn. The disadvantages though, they're a little bit finicky to start. They're not as easy for a new camper to get hot food from as the canister stoves we just looked at, and the upfront price is a little bit more for these stoves than it is for some of those other units.
We're gonna have a look at our last stove, a pretty cool one. What I love about this stove is that I don't have to carry a canister. And on a backpacking trip, that means less weight. I simply gather wood and I load it full and light it on fire to boil my water.
And this one packs down to almost nothing, very flat. You can also find some that will charge your phone for you.
When I use a stove, I'm always aware that I have a bundle, much bigger than this usually, of extra what I call fuel, my twigs, because I constantly have to load this stove in order to keep the fire hot enough to boil my water. Love this stove.
So that wraps up our look at many of the camp stoves that are available today.
There are many things to consider when deciding which stove to buy.
You want to think about what kind of camping you'll be doing.
How much money do you want to invest?
Are you looking for one that's easy to use or one that has some fine-tuning capabilities?
And then you have to choose a stove that you can find fuel quite easily for.
So think about all of these things before you make that big investment.
Well, thanks for watching, and until next time, keep your gas in your stove
and not in your tent.
And now I'll give it a click. Or two.
Look at them kids.
I'm not doing a video with you. All right, let's do it.
I don't know why we're walking away.
I don't know. All right. There are lots of... Oh.
Sorry.
Come on, Scott.
Getting the smile. Okay.
Okay, ready?